Hey everyone, my name is Manuel Guimarães. I'll be giving you guys this FAtiMA-Toolkit Workshop, which I hope, its objective is to teach artificial intelligence for game students of 2020 and 2021, but hopefully it is for everyone that wants to use FAtiMA-Toolkit. So I'll start with a brief introduction about what we are going to do, the background behind FAtiMA-Toolkit, then talk a little bit about how things usually function, and then I'll explain a little bit about the authoring tool itself, which I'll be also calling it FAtiMA-Toolkit. And finally, I might talk a little bit about Unity Starter Kit. Okay. So let's start with some background on FAtiMA. Essentially, it was the architecture created by Professor João Dias and Ana Paiva for João Dias' master thesis. They created a game called Fear Not, which is a bullying serious game, and the model used to control the characters in Fear Not followed this emergent narrative approach, which means that the narrative comes from the interaction within the characters in the world. And following that experiment, following that thesis, João Dias continued working on FAtiMA, and it was applied to other projects such as Orient, Traveler, and Mixer. Well, I guess that was the name of one of the projects, and they all explored several different social emotional concepts such as empathy, social relations, theory of mind, cultural behavior, and emotional regulation. I can showcase you one of the latest examples of FAtiMA-Toolkit being used in a commercial and I guess a bit serious game. It was developed using working with an actual company. Just mute it. So essentially, this single player game works on mobile, and you need to try to understand the problem behind the ships. And the clients, they come for you and they ask, and you have to ask them about what's the problem they're facing and how you can solve it without making them too mad. Yeah. So essentially, you can find this on the Play Store. But essentially, it's an example of a successful commercial release game using FAtiMA-Toolkit, and the developers took a lot of some time and even adapted FAtiMA-Toolkit to their needs. So, okay. So I need to make a small recap on agents first. We need to talk a little bit about what they are. So essentially, this is the perception action cycle. Such is called. If you know what an agent is essentially a computer program that is able to make perceptions on the world, which essentially means that he perceives what's going on around him, and then he makes actions upon that world, actions that affect the world itself. As such, he will be constantly updating its perceived values and then adding it and making decisions on them. Okay. And what we call an embodied agent, which is an agent that has a physical appearance. It might be virtual or physical, but essentially we can communicate with them. And this is also the thought process behind a lot of intelligent agents. But the embodied agents are particular because they have some type of body, unlike, for instance, Alexa or Siri, where they don't have any body. Those are just intelligent, I guess. And this is how a typical embodied agent framework looks like. Essentially, they are able to connect with a human user. The human user is able to connect with them or talk with them using several different means, and then they are able to perceive what the user said and reply back using several different types of information. For instance, non-verbal behavior, speech generation, some animation, some natural language generation, etc. And FAtiMA-Toolkit is kind of like that, except we don't really work on the animation, but we are able to generate speech. We are able to understand the user through dialogue, and essentially, if you build the other systems, you are able to work with FAtiMA pretty well in the middle for the decisions and etc. Okay, so FAtiMA Toolkit is a collection of tools and assets designed for the creation of characters, and I know this is pretty generic. We'll go, of course, a little bit more in depth, but essentially this is the continuation of the work that started in 2005 and now has evolved into something a little bit at least user friendly. Because at the time, only people that knew Fatima, which were like 3 people and then a little bit more, but essentially we had like a really small, restricted number of people that knew Fatima, knew how to work with it. And essentially, Fatima Toolkit is what we took what was already done, and then we tried it to make it user friendly and be much more user oriented, I guess. But you'll see, okay. And this is some okay, cool. So what I want to say here is that we have something called the integrated authoring tool, which is probably the tool that you guys will use more. And this integrated authoring tool creates JSON files, what we call now the scenario and the storage rules file. And then we have the Fatima engine that you can put it within a game. Of course, you can test things out here with these two things and see if the scenario is working. And I'll show you a little bit more ahead what I mean by that. But then we have the Fatima engine. That, for instance, if you want to use Fatima in a game, you need these DLL files so they can compute everything that's going on behind the scenes and in the theory of mind of the agents. Okay. And then, of course, it connects to a game. So, for instance, if we take a look at these examples, we have the integrated authoring tool, which is this tool here that I hope you guys will use, and I'm sure you will. Otherwise, why would you be here? Which will create JSON files. Not these ones. This is from an old version, but it will create like 2 different JSON files. And then you can, if you want, apply this to a game or to any other application, I guess. Fatima engine is like a C# library, but essentially works as DLL files that you can input them in the game or in your project. And then you have the performance of this scenario that you created here. Okay. And before we move on, I need to say a few things regarding Fatima. It takes a character-centric approach, which means that the narrative emerges from how the player and the agents interact with them, within each other, and according to the world. Okay. It uses a rule-based system, like you will be writing some rules of decision and some rules of appraisal. It's just the way that it works, and the rules are pretty straightforward to understand, so we'll get there. And then it also has a modular approach, which means that the authors may use only the components that they need. And so, for instance, if you only want someone with a memory, or if you only want someone to react with emotions and that doesn't really decide anything, then you just need like very simple components. And then as you want to get things more believable, they will become, of course, more complex. But I'll be here to help you. And so I'll start with focusing on the first 2 parts, because I think these are the most important ones. The first one is using the integrated authoring tool, and this by using the integrated authoring tool, you are creating scenario and character files, and then on the later where I'll talk about the Unity starter kit, we'll be focusing on the other 2 stages, which is how the Fatima engine works and how you can create a game with Fatima. Okay. And of course, for the students of everyone will have access to these tools. These are all Fatima is an open source software of open source project. Sorry. So essentially, you can take a look at the code within Fatima. I have no problem with that. No one has any problem with that. If you want to make improvements and if you want to do other stuff, you can, of course. And you can download both of these things. So the integrated authoring tools on the left, and then the starter kit, which is a Unity project that already has the Fatima engine within it. And I think it has like a small template project, so you guys can start with something. Okay. First of all, we'll be using for this for what I'll write. So I'll be using the 4.1 version, okay, which is the latest one. It has some modifications compared to the previous versions. There are only two types of files, the scenario and the cognitive rules file. But yeah, so if you're working with previous versions of Fatima, most of the tutorials are also made on the 3.0 and the 4.0 version. So I'm sure you'll get the hang of it. And for this one, we'll use, of course, the latest version at the time. So if you open the binaries file, let me see if I have it open. So if you go to FAtiMA-Toolkit and then you go to, I think this is the one that you have, which is the binaries. So here in the Fatima authoring tools, you'll see like there's a lot of files. You just need one of them, which is the Fatima Toolkit. There are a lot of files because, as we said before, this takes like a modular approach. So you can see that for each component that we'll be looking at, we have like different files for them because everything works almost independently, except this Fatima authoring tool and the integrated authoring tool. They essentially combine everything into one. So this is why you only need to run one, because this already has the other ones. Okay, so this should be the latest version, as you can see here before. Oh, okay. So let's move on to the slide so that I don't lose myself. For instance, here is the version 3.0. You'll see that there are some differences, but I'll explain the overview first, and then we can start making a scenario so that you guys can understand it better. Okay, and everything will work out in the end. And so this section here is actually pretty similar. We have here the scenario name, we have the description, we have the characters, and we have here the dialogues and a bunch of other tabs that we will look at later, or all just now. So, so I can go through them very fast. Essentially, I have the scenario here, and if you guys want, you can create a scenario. So let's say I want to say that this is like a park. I'm at the park. And I can just give a description so that I can help myself to at least know the goals for this objective. So just some friends in a park. At a park, I think. At a park, having lunch, for instance. Okay. And now I need to add characters. Okay, so let's add either John. Yeah, let's add John. And Sarah. I know that this doesn't work with an enter. I'll fix that soon. So now we have two characters. We have like a basic small scenario that still doesn't do anything because they have no decision. But you can see that we have John and Sarah. And if we clicked on them, we can see that we already have his name. Now we can choose its body, voice, and a bunch of other stuff. The same for Sarah. And you'll see that if I don't click on any one of these, this character tab would be closed. But we have here the dialogues, the cognitive rules, the character, the world model, the simulator, which is where you guys can test the things if the scenario is working or not. For instance, if I say like this, we can see that John and Sarah are both within the scenario and it is running, but of course they don't have anything attributed to them, so they can't do any decisions. And we have a web API additionally, where if you want to run your game and connect through Fatima using a server, it's entirely possible. Okay. Cool. So there are two types of files, which it will be simpler to see if we already have a scenario. But for now, let's do this like this. Okay. We have the scenario, which is the scenario information, which stores essentially the scenario name, its description, its characters, the dialogues, the world model, the simulator, and the web API. So everything that I just shown you, except this cognitive rules storage file. Okay. And this cognitive rules storage file, which we just typically call it storage, essentially just stores the cognitive rules, which is the decision-making rules and the appraisal rules that we will define for the characters. Okay. So we have the scenario information on the first one, which essentially stores everything, including the characters, except how these characters make decisions and appraise events. and this is only stored on the cognitive rules file, okay, and they're really connected between each other. It's just something to keep in mind. We don't want to keep all of this in the same, because we might want, for instance, to change the scenario and the characters within and its dialogues, but because these cognitive rules files sometimes essentially describe common sense or common decisions. So for instance, if I'm angry, I'll be rude to other people. This is so common in the type of scenarios that we do, that we prefer to separate it so that we can use it independently. So I can use the same cognitive rules file in other scenarios. So essentially, I'm just streamlining the process of creation, and this is essentially an improvement from the past, where we had like a bunch of different files for each component, and it will get like pretty confusing. And that's mainly the thought process behind it, okay? And now don't get scared, but essentially now we have a bunch more information. Here I just detailed, essentially I created a small scenario with this information, and then I detailed where we can get informations, or where we can essentially, where each information is stored. So you can see that here the character Sarah has beliefs, which is things that she knows, essentially, okay? And so for instance, she likes chocolate and hates flowers, and the Roger likes games and hates school, and John likes beer and hates whiskey, okay? And here in the cognitive rules file, I have some emotional appraisal rules, which is how they perceive the events in the world, emotional decision making, which is how they will decide according to their beliefs, and then I have some other reasoner components, the CFCK and the social importance. I don't think we will approach them here. They are quite described in the tutorials in the FAtiMA-Toolkit page. But yeah, so we can look at them later. Okay. So this is just a slide telling you guys what I just told you. So the best way to understand Fatima is to start creating stuff. So let's start creating. Okay. And before I get ahead of myself, I opened the FAtiMA-Toolkit page. You can find a lot of information here. I'll store this workshop there too, and you can take a look also at the different showcases that we have here. For instance, all the projects that we participated in and that Fatima was used in. You can take a look here. For instance, some robots. Amish is a Go robot that is playing Sueca. And here we have Amish, which is a robot, which is exactly what I told you. Essentially, he is playing Sueca in a group environment, because Sueca is a paired game. So essentially, he's playing with this person here. And this is a study regarding group emotions. So how do people feel when he is competitive or when he is like cooperative? Okay. So I won't lose too much time here. You can also take a look here. There's a lot of tutorials, so I advise you guys to go here if you're finding trouble with a particular component, okay? And essentially here you can find a lot of the tools, a lot of tutorials. Hopefully this video will be here too, as soon as I upload it. And we will be following kind of like this tutorial. So we'll start with the integrated authoring tool and then subdivide it into its components, okay? Cool. So let's keep on moving. I'll just open this. I'll just do this. And much better. And then I'll put it here, okay? So, okay, so now we have the park scenario, okay? So let's think a little bit about the park scenario. And so first of all, when we go here to the character, let's just focus on the character, okay? We have John. John has an emotional state which describes the initial emotions that he's feeling. We typically use this if you want to start him in a bad mood or in a better mood. But we just leave it at 0 for now, although we can test our decisions according to the emotions here too. We have the knowledge base, which stores beliefs, okay? And beliefs are really important in Fatima and in agent modeling architectures. Let me just keep on going. So essentially it stores the agent's beliefs about the environment. Essentially it's the properties of agents and their relationships with each other. And essentially it's what do you believe in, essentially regards what information does he know. So I know that, like, for instance, he likes chocolate. Let's write that down. He likes chocolate, and I know that this is true, so the value of this variable is true. So John likes chocolate. Perfect. We can use this in a number of ways, but essentially we describe them as well-formed names. Okay, this is the symbology that we're using. We have symbols, which are just straight up words. We have variables that are in squared brackets, and we have composed names, which are in circled brackets. Cool. So, what do I want to show you? I want to show you how can we use this information here then. So we can say that he likes chocolate, and I'll also say that he knows that his name is John, but we can say that he is, for instance, a baker. Let's say that he is a baker, okay? And once again, I can use this in a number of ways. This is or this likes, this is not defined. I'm just using my own taxonomy to do this because I've been doing this for a while. But I can say that money, for instance, coins, I can say 5 here. I can put almost anything in the value. So I can just say money, coins, 5. I can say that this is whatever I want it to be when he is deciding. As long as I'm consistent throughout the scenario, this should be fine, okay? So, but I honestly, I hate this, so I'll just say has money, and I'll just put here 5, for instance. I'll say that he has 5 money, whatever that means. But for now, let's keep this let's keep this consistency across the scenario, okay? And then here the autobiographic memory essentially stores which events have happened in the past before. This is done almost automatically in FAtiMA, so you guys don't have to worry a lot about this. And the goals will be relevant for the emotions, but I can say that he has a goal of surviving. The significance is how much he wants, how important is this goal, and the likelihood is how far is he from attaining this goal, okay? Cool. But for now, let's just focus here on the knowledge base. And I'll also say that Sarah also likes chocolate, I guess. Let's just say like this. And I know that this value is true, for instance, okay. Here, we need to have some sort of circled brackets. I can't remember how it says. But we can have something like this, okay. And pretty simple, okay, I know that she likes chocolate, and I know that she likes John, for instance. Okay, once again, I can put something, instead of true, I can put like 5, which is, okay, let's say that I'm using relationships between these agents, using like a numeric value. I can also say that it's like -5. I can put almost anything here except a variable, okay. Knowledge bases can't have variables. It would be quite dangerous. Okay, so now let's number one look at my slides so I can see what I have. For instance, here in the slides, I put something different. I put Charlie, that has secret information, has money, has a floor, has dialogue state. Okay, we'll get to that eventually. I'll just start with something very, very simple before, okay? And now this is how you describe an event. An event can be 3 different things, okay? So events are, so it's events in the world. Things that happen in the world, things that happen that someone caused, things that happen because of the world is just like that, things that are happening now, okay? Events are composed by, events are represented by a composed name, okay? And this is, it could be like quite a lot, but it will make sense if you look at it, okay? So we have 3 different types of events, okay? Action start, action end, property change, okay? For now, let's just focus on action ends because it's the only thing that matters for now, okay? I can tell you now that action start is rarely used. Action end, it's the one that is most used, okay? And property change, it's kind of used. It's just regarding if something changed in the world, okay? So, for instance, let's look at the first one, which is action start, player, smile, John, okay? And so for these things here, just if it's an event where an action started, the subject of the action, which is the one that did the action, is here, is on the second position, the action is on the third, and the target is on the fourth. So the player smiled at John. Actually, the player started smiling at John, okay? But let's skip the action start. Let's just go to the action end. Action end, subject, action, target. So player greeted John. And this greet, it could be casual. This now depends on how you do the action, okay? And for instance, a property change event would look like this. Subject, property name, the new value. So the property change on the world. So the world was the subject, and in the world, I said that the weather now it's raining. So I just said that the new value of this variable here is raining. Okay, let me see if I did this better. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Okay. So let's just move on. Okay. I don't want to talk a little bit about autobiographic memory because this will be. I don't think you guys will need to use this. This would be used if you wanted to have like a character which has already events happen to her, so she already feels in a certain way emotionally, or she already has like some knowledge. And this might be possible if you want to do a scenario where she has like a past. You can do it. But let's skip this for now because I prefer to go to the other models first, okay? And just you can see that I'm telling you guys that we should skip this part because we can, because this is quite modular. So if I only want to use the knowledge base, which is essentially what I'm using right now, yeah, I can just use the knowledge base. So I can just skip all of this emotional state, autobiographic memory, and goals, okay? So I'm just using knowledge base for now. Of course, if you want to get a more believable scenario, you should use the other components. But for now, let's keep doing this, okay? So let's go to the emotional appraisal. And I've told this before, but emotions are quite important for our decision making. Damasio proved that if these two parts, which is their cognitive functions, but also their emotional thoughts and their emotional perception, if these two parts don't interconnect in a proper manner, options are harder to be filtered and bad decisions are easier to take, okay? And these findings essentially influence the whole intelligent agent modeling architectures, because once we found out that emotions are quite important, then we started trying to define them and trying to find the best theory behind emotions. And for instance, Aristotle identified 14 different emotions. Paul Ekman uses 6 basic emotions. And there are other theories that use more or less. There are one that only uses... Actually, the 6 ones is the most essential ones. Paul Ekman, for instance, found out that these emotions are all culturally universal. And give me 1 second. Yeah, so I was missing some light on my face. This is way better now. And so Paul Ekman, for instance, you can see that these drawings here, you can't see because of my camera, but I'll try to do the face. It's surprise. So essentially, he just he didn't show any label for the face. So he just showed these drawings, and he went around the world and finding out if people identify these faces as, for instance, anger, disgust, fear, or joy, and he found out all over the globe. He even went to tribes that hadn't been in contact with human civilization, and he found out that these are universally acknowledged. So there's something even primal regarding to these emotions and to these faces, okay? And these were all essentially, these are the 6 basic emotions, though they are all culturally universal. And for instance, Ortony, Clore, and Collins propose a model of 22 emotional types with distinct cognitive features. So other than these 6 basic emotions, they also propose that there are a lot more within the spectrum or within the emotional space, okay? And this last one is the one that Fatima follows. So we have 22 different emotions, okay? And yep, just like I said, essentially their theory is that emotions develop as a consequence of certain cognitions interpretations, okay? What this means is that once we perceive an event, once something happens around us, we essentially appraise it, which is the correct term, I guess. We appraise this event, and according to certain variables, we generate some emotions. Okay, this is really generic, but you will understand. Okay. And so essentially they define like a set of variables. So for instance, I got paid, for instance. Okay, I got this event, I got paid. This event is then diluted to a certain appraisal variables, which I guess would be desirability and praiseworthiness too, and liking, if I like money. And then it will then be it will generate certain emotions, okay, within. So essentially they define some appraisal variables, and according to our evaluation of these appraisal variables, we have emotions. Okay, for instance, the one of the simplest ones is consequences of events. So essentially, if I have an event, I have to look at its consequences, and if it was desirable, okay, and then I go down this tree, and was this event desirable for me or for others or for me? Let's just say I got paid was desirable for me. If it was desirable for me, if it was regarding a goal, then I go down the street. If it wasn't, for instance, I got paid, whatever. I don't have any goals. If my prospect is irrelevant, then if it was a positive event, then I will generate joy. If it was not a good thing, then it will generate distress. This is essentially how it goes. The desirability one will be the one, once again, that you guys will use more. And also the praiseworthiness, which means that is this event in the views of society acceptable or not? For instance, I punch someone. If I punch someone, if someone is appraising this event, if someone watch me punching someone, then the society would actually reproach it, and so it will actually generate, if it was to other agent, reproach. So people would feel reproach regarding me. And if I was the one that was evaluating this event, so if I punch someone and I know this is frowned upon in the society, then I'm ashamed. I should be ashamed. And if I was also distressed because of something else, this will then combine into remorse. So I would feel bad for having punched someone. Okay, this is a huge graph, and I understand it is a bit complicated. We just need to get this out of the way. Once again, it's way simpler once we start actually programming it. Okay, so we have 5 different variables, and they are all defined by this. So desirability for others, praiseworthiness, goal success probability, and the like, if I like an object or not. Okay, cool. And this is how they are all interlinked within FAtiMA. And of course, if you have several different variables for the same event, it will generate several emotions, and then the system itself will be able to compute which is the one that that has the strongest intensity. Okay, cool. And essentially, emotional appraisal works. This is why it was important for us to learn events, because you give them an action template, which is, for instance, someone just gave me candy, okay, and I can say that this is desirable with a value of 5, okay, and this will of course generate joy, just like we saw before, because it's only related to desirability, and I'm giving it a positive value, so this was good for me, and I will be feeling joy. And for instance, being insulted, I can say that being insulted is undesirable and blameworthy. So I can say that this blameworthy is that it's not praiseworthy, or the society is not good. It's frowned upon in society, and it's true. Okay, you shouldn't be insulting anyone. So this event would be, if someone insulted me, I would be feeling desirability with -5 and praiseworthiness with -3. Or if I insulted, yeah, something like this. And so essentially, this would go down here. I would feel angry, probably, not probably, for sure. I would be feeling angry if someone insulted me. Okay. By the way, yeah, I should mention this. Essentially, self is a special reserved word that is substituted by the agent's name when being evaluated. So when I'm saying self, it is regarding the agent that is evaluating this event. Okay, cool. So let's create some emotional appraisal actions. I have something here, but I don't want to get into this because this involves speak actions, which are special kinds of actions. But essentially what I'm saying here is that, for instance, if someone spoke to me and the flag that I gave him was sad, then this would not be desirable. If I was neutral, it would be desirability 2, which is really low, so it will generate a low intensity emotion. And here, if I was happy, someone spoke to me and it was happy, then I'll be like quite desirable. Okay. So let's first of all get rid of this background because I know that is kind of pushy. And so let's create here in the cognitive rules. Okay. Let's create an emotional appraisal. So let's add an emotional appraisal. And let's say something that, okay, so if I'm I'm not the subject, but I'm the target of the action, like this. And let's say that someone gives chocolate, okay? And I'll say that this is, so I'll add this thing here, and I will say that this is quite desirable. Yeah, I like chocolate, okay? Perfect. Okay, cool. So now let's do another thing. Let's say that if someone gives me something I like, that this is also desirable. So instead of me just writing chocolate here, because this is just saying if someone gives me chocolate, this is good, I'll just write here a variable, okay? So let's put gift. And then please notice how I'm using square brackets to define a variable, okay? And what I'm going to add here in the rule conditions is that I likes gift equals true. Okay? And so what this is going to do is that every time someone is going to receive this action, so he's going to appraise it, which means that he's going to go through its emotional appraisal. So for instance, John gives Sarah a gift. Sarah will appraise this event. We'll see that she is in fact the target of that action. And then she will take a look at her knowledge base. So she will go here in the knowledge base and she will compare which values are here and that they're true. And essentially she will figure out that, oh, he offered me chocolate, this is quite good. Okay. And of course, I might have something like, if this is not true or false, I can put like something like this here. I can also put not true. I can also say that if I don't like this, then this is not desirable at all. I hate it. Thanks, but I hate it, so I'll just put this at negative. Okay. Perfect. So now we have a really simple emotional appraisal rule that is essentially generating either joy or distress. Okay. According to a gift, if he gave him a gift that she doesn't like, or that he gave me a gift that she likes. Okay. Okay. And now here we need to save our progress. So here is where we get into the two types of files. So we have one here which essentially saves the information from the scenario, and I have also like these things here. Okay, I just want to pretend that this is like you guys. So Fatima. So what I typically do is if I'm saving the scenario information, I'll just write here scenario JSON. And then here I will save this cognitive rules file as a storage. And then that's it. And you can see that if I go here and then I'll try to open any one of these, I'll be successful in it. If I open here the scenario, which I wrote scenario on, and then here I'll need to open the other one, okay? So when you start the scenario up, you need to take that into consideration, okay? Yeah, I should be using some background song, I guess. So just give me a second. Never mind. Well, let's keep on going. Okay, I'll edit later. Okay, so now we have an emotional appraisal, right? So we have like something. If someone gives something to Sarah, she will like it. If someone gives something to also John, because it's applicable for the both of them. Because don't forget that they are sharing this cognitive rules file, so they will both verify this condition here. So if Sarah offers something to John, he will also verify this condition here, and if it's true, then this will be applied. Okay. Okay, so now we need to move on to emotional decision making. Okay, and just like I told you, right now they also share the cognitive rules file, so which it means that every action that we define will apply to both of them, unless in the conditions that we say that it only applies to one of them. Okay, we will take a look at this soon. Okay, so how do we write an action? We have its action, so it's its name, but essentially what it is, just like we have the emotional appraisal. We have a target, and then we have the conditions. Okay, what we have here: insult agents that I do not like when I'm in a negative mood. Action insult, target X, we should define it. And the conditions is agent X true, so is X an agent? Does he like the other person, and is my mood positive or not? Okay. And one thing that's going to happen in the conditions, just like in emotional appraisal, is that they're going to be substituted. Okay. And so he will start with is an agent, so he will try to look at the scenario and see which names can I substitute by X. So is John an agent? Is Mary an agent? Is Luke an agent? In our case, it will only happen with John and Sarah, so X in this condition will only be replaced by John or Sarah, but he also tried to substitute by other names. Okay, but let's move on. I don't think this is particularly relevant, so let's try to define a decision-making rule. Okay, so now we were here, now we're moving on to the emotional decision-making. Okay, so let's add a rule. Let's add the rule of giving a gift. Okay, so give, for instance, chocolate. And the target is, I need to say what the target is. I can just say John, I guess. John. Okay. Cool, simple. The cool thing about this, right now, the scenario, the authoring tools, is that you can test this almost immediately. So remember when I told them to start up, I need to just do this again. And then I think they can... Okay, they can't. Cool. I need to save or... Okay, I need to save. So just be careful that we need to save stuff, okay? But essentially, I can just go into the simulator, I can start the scenario, and they will instantaneously try to do any action, if the conditions are verified. What's happening here is that, for instance, I define that we have a simple decision that is giving chocolate to John, okay? And what is happening is that when they start, they're going like by turn. So Sarah performs instantaneously to John, give chocolate, and I can go like this. I can be also like a guy that's watching from the outside. I should explain a little bit what this is. Essentially, information regarding, so they both enter the room and then they start performing actions. Here, if we had an available dialogue, it would be shown here. If we had available action, it would be shown here. If we were playing as one of the agents, okay? You can play as one of the agents here, and then you need to start. And then you can see here that I'm playing as John, and I have the action to give chocolate to John, okay? Also here, I have a ton of debugging things to do to show you. So I have the knowledge base, I have the emotional state, I can see their emotions, and you can see here right now, because Sarah gave chocolate to John, and because John likes the chocolate, he's now feeling joy with a 5 intensity, okay? Perfect. So it means that everything is working well. We can see the goals, the autobiographic memory, which is which events happen, and you can see here that if you open this up, you can see that the event name is entered because we had a small event that is automatically happens, which is that they enter the room. Well, yeah, never mind. And then we have the dynamic properties, which are, remember how we have the self that replaces stuff. We have also the is agents. We have a lot of essentially functions that you can call in the conditions so that they evaluate it immediately. Okay, so I can say that let's add a condition here that, for instance, if the mood of self is bigger than 0, then I will perform this action. So essentially, I only give chocolate to John if I'm feeling good or if I'm feeling better than 0. Okay, and so of course here in the simulator nothing will happen because I didn't save once again. Because I didn't save, but now if I do this and if I start, you can see that no one will give chocolate to John because no one's mood is bigger than 0. And you can go here in the emotional state. There's nothing here, and I think you can do this mood self. No. Ooh. Yeah, so you can call the functions here, and you can see that John's mood right now is 0. Okay, so what we do, for instance, we can go back and say, actually, the emotional state of John is pretty good. And here I think I need to say this one. So when I start, John will be, I'm playing as John, don't forget it. So if I'm going like this, John gives chocolate to John, which of course doesn't make sense. But we can change this really quickly. And I can also evaluate its mood. And now it's positive because if you guys remember, he's now feeling better. The emotional intensity does not translate directly to the mood, but it affects it, okay? It's like indirect. Well, if your mood is higher, it's because you're feeling positive emotions, but it's not like a direct scale. Like if I'm feeling 5 joy, I'm not feeling 5 mood, okay? Cool. So now let's just change these things a little bit. Let's say that first of all, I cannot do this action towards myself. So I need to say that I need to add a condition, which is the target, which is John, is different than self. So I can just say is because I need to have, okay, self, wait, what if I do like this? So we always need to have square brackets, which I often forget, okay? But if I go like, another good way to do this is using the is agent. So is agent John. This one, so is agent John. I mean, I guess this is true. But what I'll do is I'll just jump towards the next conclusion, which is I can do this, right? So I can do this, okay. So I must be missing something, but essentially what I want to say here is that essentially I'm saying, okay, you know what? The target of the action is going to be the variable t, and I can replace t by saying, okay, so which agents are in our scenario? And of course, he will replace t by both John and Sarah, and then he will move on to the next condition and say, okay, can it be both values? If it can be both values, he will just launch 2 different actions. But here he's saying, actually, you can't be yourself, so John cannot be itself. So what's going to happen is that once again no one's going to, what the, well, okay, mood self. Okay, but is okay. So now John knows that he can give, because we essentially now we have a good template of an action, which is give chocolate to anyone, okay? And this anyone can be anyone that we place here, as long as my mood is positive. And so here what happened was that John gave chocolate to Sarah. Sarah was in a positive mood. John was in a positive mood. Sarah became or gained a positive mood because she received that action that she likes. And so now they're just performing give chocolate to each other. If you say here, like in the continue, they will keep performing the same action, not the same action, But because we didn't restrict the number of actions or the number of times they can do this, they can keep on doing this. Okay, cool. So now we have like a really basic interaction between these two, and we can also make it even more generic, which is I will only give gifts that I like. So I can use this once again. I'll just write gift. Okay, I'll just update this. And now here in the conditions, I'll add another condition, which is likes gift equals true. So if I like this gift, I'll give it to him. And now I can go like, we can try a different thing, which I can say that John likes different things. So I can say that he likes flowers. Oh, I'll just say flower, okay? So let's say, and let's see what happens. So when I start, John performs to Sarah, gives flower. John is in a good mood. However, how is the mood of Sarah? We can see here that she has 0, so she doesn't change its mood. Because this cognitive rule, she doesn't know what a flower is. So when she's evaluating this, does she like this? It's not false, it's nothing. So I can say something like this. I can remove this condition, which would be pretty cool. And let's see what happens here. Okay, so now she's distressed, okay? So essentially what I did was that I said that if you give her a gift and she likes it, perfect. If you give her a gift and she doesn't know what it is, she hates it. So essentially now we have two different people. One is in a good mood, the other one is quite distressed. And I can see the moods. So his mood is positive, but he's, of course, the emotions tend to go to 0. So after a while, if you keep on going with these actions, it's going to fade away. While Sarah is just gaining, it's increasing, and the emotions value go from -10 to 10. So be careful with that. Okay, cool. So now we have like a really simple two different appraisal rules, and we have like one different but generic action, which is good. And of course we can change these things. We can say that when he doesn't like a gift, he gives it. Or for instance, if he has more money, we can play around with his knowledge base. If he has money bigger than 5, then he also might give her money, and she might like money better than giving her gifts that she doesn't know, for instance. Okay, cool. Let's look at the slides so I don't get lost and that I know what I'm doing. Okay, so now we need to talk a little bit about dialogue because it's obviously the next step. So we can finish this because I think this is going on by almost 1 hour. So let's just skim right through this. Essentially, we try to have a hybrid solution between dialogue trees, which are still the most familiar solution for everyone. And of course, autonomous agents don't do well with this because they have no choice here. So it's like they're just a state machine that's doing their own thing. And we have like a bit of hybrid solution where they kind of pick the dialogues from a pool of dialogues available. They are still kind of a state machine, and there is still like a dialogue tree happening, but there are different options of choice, or their different dialogues are easier to pick, and they can pick like from a number of them. Okay. So just like we had events were composed by event type, subject, action, and targets. Now we have there's actually 5 different things, which is the current state, the next state, the meaning and the style, and then the utterance. Okay, current state and next state are pretty simple. It's where you're moving, where you are till where you're moving. The meaning and the style are purely flags. You can write anything there, as long as then when you're making decisions, he understands them. Okay. And finally, the utterance is what he's going to say. So you can see here, for instance, when we start the dialogue, we start and then we transition to opening 1. using, for instance, its meaning is greet, it's a greeting, and then the style is polite. So good morning, how can I help you? Okay. And the response might be, hi there, I'm having trouble with, let's see if this bar goes away, this hard drive. Okay, cool. And so the dialog manager does not make decisions for the agents. Instead, the agents make the decisions, and then the dialog manager gives them the options. Okay. So let's do something like this. Okay. So let's try to create this. Once again, I'll try to long. Just curious about what the background is. That's fine. Of course, this is kind of quiz. Okay. So let's now go to the dialogues. Okay. So let's create dialogues. Let's say we start with let's start. Okay. So the first step is the first dialog state. Okay. Once again, this will be a bit similar to a dialog tree, but the way you give them options, it's pretty different. Okay. So let's go to we can write literally anything here. Okay. Now let's go with greeting. Sure. And then here in the meaning, in the style, I don't need to put anything for now. How you doing? And then I can duplicate this, which is simple, and then I can just go like this, greeting, transitions to there. And then I'll say hello there. Hello there. And then, for instance, here I can transition to General Kenobi. Cool. So now we have like these three dialogues, and the cool thing about FAtiMA-Toolkit is that we have like different debugging options. As you can see here in the validate, essentially it determines if all the states that you've written are reachable, because this often gets quite complex. So here they are all reachable, and you can see all the end states, which is the last one, Kenobi, which we haven't essentially given actually written what's going to happen there, but you can end it like this. And we can also view a graph, a pretty simple graph, which is the dialog tree, okay, which is pretty straightforward. Once again, we don't have this state. Okay, cool. So now let's give him a choice, which is here in the start. Instead of greeting, let's say insult. And I'm going to say fuck off. Okay, this is kind of, sorry. This is kind of like really straightforward, but whatever. Okay, so let's save. I think this works without save, but we can now see the graph. Now we are diverging. We have the insult. And now I can go, like, literally go like this. Kenobi. And now I can say that, wait. Well, yeah, let's see what happens here. And so he's just doing like something like this, okay. Which is pretty funny. And I'll go like this. I said that he's moving to the insult, right? Now let's just create this insult now that we're here. Hate. Damn. Okay, like this is like really stupid and really small dialogue, but now we can see that our graph is diverging and that our dialogue tree is growing. Okay, so let's make them actually decide to do these things. Also, you can find like a lot of things here. Like I can just say there and find the state, and here I can determine which flags I'm filtering through. The duplicate option is actually really helpful, and of course we have a text to speech, so I can just say. No. Oh.
Fuck off.
Okay, I don't know if you guys can hear that.
Fuck off.
Cool. And I'm curious to hear him say this. Damn.
Hello, world. General Kenobi.
And here this comes from the Windows text to speech or speech to text actually. So you can download this and then we'll have access to other types of voices. And this will come in handy when you're here in the character, when you have like a voice and a body. The body is regarding if in your game or in your application, if you want to have a particular type of model attributed to him, you can use this information here so that he automatically knows which type of model to attribute when the game is running. The same for the voice. So you can record all of these dialogues in the same voice and then put it in the folder. And then when we're going through here to the voice, you can just say, okay, if it's this voice, then use this type of folder, right? Cool. So now let's make them decide to run this speak actions, okay? And the speak action is particular because what I've just told you essentially uses 4 different things, which I'll use here. So it has the current state, the next state, the style, the meaning and the style, though it's sort of irrelevant. Why are you being like this? Why? So let's say, what's going on? What? Speak. Can do like this? Okay. Meaning and the style. Okay, so now I have these 3. So if I put something like this, interesting. So the thing is asterisks were to say that you can put anything here essentially, but here in the actions, I understand why it's not possible. Essentially, we need to give them. I wonder if this works. Okay, so let's go like this. So this is the speak action, and I need to give him a target as well. So let's say John. Once again, we're going to make it not generic at first, and then try to make it generic. So I was already putting there the variables, but you can go something like this. Start greeting, which I think it was the name, right? Update, I need to save, and then here in the simulator, hopefully Sarah says to John, how you doing? Okay, so essentially she is deciding to say this one first, how you doing? And of course, if I change this, they will perform different actions. So what's happening right now is that both of them are not only triggering the first action, but they are also triggering the speak action. So they are going to, you have a different list, so you have a list that you can select, and it's going to by priority. Both of the actions actually have the same priority, the give gift and this one. I can just say that I prefer for them to speak before they give, not before, but always I'll give more priority to that one, and essentially they will just say speak always. And the cool thing is that if I play as John, for instance, I can see that here I have this dialogue of how you doing, and also if I change this priority to 1, I think I will see both of them. Yeah, so I can say that John is saying to John, how you doing? So he's saying to himself, and I can pick Sarah to give the flower, and I can actually perform these actions here. So this is a good thing. You can play as each one of them. You'll see that Sarah only has 1 option because she's not in a good mood. Okay, so now let's advance this a little bit better. So let's make it kind of generic, or not kind of, for sure generic. And here I want to say next state. Okay, and here we want to do the same thing that we did before with the target, where we actually want them to use this thing. So we want to say that it's agent, so he can only speak to an agent. So let's go like this. And then let's say that the agent can't be itself, so you guys can copy and paste and whatever. Remember when I told when the segment would be fast. Okay, so now we have pretty simple things. We have an agent T. So essentially both of them will be able to talk, but just to the other one, okay? And now we have two different variables which we need to define, the current state and the next state. Of course I can go like this and I can say that the current state is start. And can I say that an NS is anything? Let's see what happens here. Oh no. I broke it. Holy fuck. So this is normal for workshops, right? So I just wanted to show you guys how you guys can open the projects. Scenario opens here. This one opens here. Hopefully everything is recorded. Yep, there we have the things, the cognitive rules, the same, the emotional decision making, and here is where I made my first mistake. So let's see if I don't remove this. So if we leave it like this is not going to work. He will not be able to process this because he doesn't know what NS is, okay? And of course here I can do something clever, which is I can go like, by the way, NS is greeting if I'm in a good mood. So and I can say that if I'm in a bad mood, so I can just either duplicate this. I can say that here, if I'm in a bad mood, that NS is actually, come on, is actually insult. Cool. Bam. And now, let's see if this is working. And now Sarah, so you can see here, John performed to Sarah, give flower. Sarah doesn't like flower or even know what it is, so she was angry and so immediately decided to, hey, you know what, I'm just going to pick this other option. So I'm going to go to this part of the graph. And now I think they're going to keep repeating themselves, okay. Okay, so now we need to talk a little bit about another thing, which is how do we find a good state for conversation, okay? So essentially, we need to define a good way of keeping track of the conversations, because right now, the current state and the next state are not moving, because we are essentially manually doing this, okay? So we can use another function, which is just like the mood and like this agent, that you can take a look here in the dynamic properties, what we call the dynamic properties. So you guys can use any single one of these ones. The one that we're going to use will be the valid dialogue, okay? To show you a little bit more. And this valid dialogue essentially will just replace every variable by their possible replacements, as long as they are acceptable, okay? And you can see that here, for instance, if I go here and I just put, of course this is a bit long, wait, I want to change this one, valid dialogue, say S, NS, and then I need to put the other ones, but of course I set them at we can't forget the is true. So sorry for that. I know that sometimes it's frustrating because he doesn't care about the whole line, but for now it's how it is. Valid dialogue, CS, NS, NS, and then I will just put it here. And I go like this, and now it's perfect. Okay. Essentially now. What this does is that he's replacing every possible combination of CS and NS by anything that is in the dialogues. So what's going to happen is that if you decide to speak, they're just going to go through every single dialogue because there's no rules here. Okay? So what we do to fix this is that we want them to go through every possible combination of dialogues in the current state of the conversation, okay? And this is why in the slides, you guys can take a look here, is that we have something called the current state in the variables. So we have like not the current state, but the dialog state. We call it the dialog state. You guys can call it whatever you want. You could be the starting part of the dialogue, but essentially is a belief that keeps track of the current state of the conversation, which is why we call it dialog state. Okay. But you can see here when I'll be using it here. So I'll say that John dialog state, and here I'll put it with Sarah, because it's important if you have different agents, it's important to keep track of the dialog state within each of them. Or if you want, you can just keep track of the conversation state with every single one of them. So if I go like this, I'll say start. Okay. Cool. And now I'll say that here the CS value, I'll put it here this before, because this goes now. I'll say that CS equals dialog state with the target. Okay. So now I know for sure that if anyone tries to speak, the current state will be equal to the dialog state according to that character. Okay. So for instance, if I'm John, my dialog state with Sarah right now is at start. So when he decides to speak, he's going to start at start. Okay. So let's see what happens. John says to Sarah, "How you doing?" He's going to keep doing this because its current state is not advancing. Much like Sarah doesn't know what its current state. So now, even if it was Sarah's turn and she decided to speak, she wouldn't know what to do. Why? Because she doesn't have this variable here. So I'm sorry, I'm tricking things up, but essentially when Sarah is deciding, actually I need to remove this one, I think. Yeah, let's just remove this one. This one is generic enough, okay? Okay, so now I don't... Okay, so now, yeah. So now John is always... Ooh. Sarah, fuck off. Why? Oh, okay. So essentially he's just going through everything that he can hear, okay? So start greeting. So he's just going by this one's too here, because he's, of course, he's going through each one of them, because he keeps replacing the NS by other things. Okay, so this is what the valid dialog is. So when we get to this section here, valid dialog starts the next state we don't know, so he's going to replace the next state by anything it can. So anything that is acceptable, taking into account that he has the start as a current state. Okay. Hopefully you guys can understand this. I know it's a bit confusing. Once again, the best way is to keep using it, and we should be over soon. I'll just do a basic dialogue really quick. So what we do to minimize this and to keep track of the current state is that we use the world model. Okay. So now we have world model. What I'm going to say is that every time there's a speak action, and I'll use the asterisk to define anything, but I can't define anything like this. I need to say that NS. So let's see if you guys can get this. I'm giving variables to these variables here, and priority. This is kind of irrelevant. I'm going to add an effect. So I'm going to say that the dialog state, and this is I hope it's really well. I think it's pretty well explained in FAtiMA-Toolkit's website. But essentially, the dialog state of so we need to think about it. So if John told Sarah something, now I want Sarah's dialog state towards John, which was the one that spoke. I want him to be the next state, so I'm going to put something like this, and I'm going to say that the observer agent was the target. Okay. Cool. So I'll need to save this. Okay. And I think this does everything. But let's see. Okay, it's good. So we can see the knowledge base of Sarah. So the dialogue state toward John is greeting, and John's knowledge base also has there. So now John is going to keep going. Okay, so number one, I did something back there where I want to define the priority of speak. So I can filtrate these things better. So I know that I only want them to speak. And what's happening right now is that they're speaking at the same time. Okay. And this is another variable that we used to use that is has floor. So what will happen in your game is either you have a turn-based system where one talks, now the other one, now the other one, now the other one. We can do this here too. In the simulator, it's kind of like also doing this, but it's choosing the first one randomly. As you can see, John tells Sarah immediately to fuck off, and Sarah says damn, and then they're stuck there, I think, yeah, because she can't move. And now here, John says to Sarah, and John says to Sarah. Yeah, so this is not that great. Because they're here, of course, here they're not. So if I do like this, okay, let me start again. How you doing? Hello there, General Kenobi, General Kenobi. Okay, so they get stuck here, of course. Okay, but what I want to say is that here they're kind of taking turns in the simulator. However, in your game, they might start speaking over each other. And one way to do this is to define a variable that's called has floor. So essentially answers who has the floor. So who is the first one to speak? Of course, you can do this little trick that I did, which is the world model. This will work for the first times because at the start, Sarah doesn't talk because she doesn't have the dialogue state, which makes sense, sure. But I can also say that you can only speak if you have the floor, okay? And that is one of the things that we also say here, I think. Here I explain the dialogue state. And for instance, if you have different characters or 3 different characters, you'll need this has floor variable, okay? Okay, so really quick, I just wanted to say another thing, which is typically the best way to do this these things is that you have a style here. So the best way to essentially go down the dialogue tree to make different options available to the agents. It's not using, so this next state defines different states, but you can use, like, for instance, style, and I can say that it was rude here, okay? And essentially, I can say that I have something like this, like quite similar, but I have, for instance, here, I want the rude one, okay? And here, I'm only going to choose this thing here if my mood is lower. So just like we did before, okay? And don't forget, please, that you need to also change this. Otherwise, this is going to... Actually, yeah, it's going to be not that safe. So if you do this, essentially, and another important thing is that you need to define this priority here. You know that if she's feeling bad, and there's the option to be rude, then she's going to pick to be rude, okay? And what's going to happen here is that if she's not feeling good, she's going to say, how are you doing? And of course, this is John. So I don't think this will ever be picked, I think, now. Oh, it was. Okay, nice. Why? Oh, because of this, or because I didn't save. What? Emotional states. Restarts positive, which is weird. Let's see, break this rule. And then he goes here. Yeah, okay, so... then why... What the... Start greeting, meaning rude. How you doing? Okay, because okay. So this is working properly. I just messed up. So now he won't pick this one. Okay. So now he's just going to say the first one. But what happens is if I go like this, if I go here to the character and I say, hey, John, actually you're feeling pretty bad. And now I'll go here. He's going to be like, fuck off, and he's going to be damn. Okay, so this is the best way to do like this kind of different choices in the same scenario. If you use the flags, either meaning or the style, to define either the context or the emotional disposition of the characters, then you're doing a pretty good job. Okay. And so you can see here the graph, and you know that he's only going to go through this path if he's like in a bad mood. Okay, of course you can also leave it to randomness, okay? So if you just do like this, he's going to pick randomly. Like if you only have this rule here, he's going to do it randomly. Don't forget that here I'm using this things here. I can of course also replace this by meaning and style. And I can actually give him any value that I want once again. Style. And then I just, you can't forget about this one, but you need to replace this. And of course here he's also going to replace the rude one, so be careful there. Okay, be careful because here there is the option of him actually choosing the rude one. So I would say like if my mood is bigger than, or something like this. Okay, I want to end this because I've been talking for 1 hour and almost a half. And here I explain the speak actions. Of course, they each can work independently, but they work best together. And the starter kit is also a great way to use them. I have like a brief description of Fatima starter kit in the FAtiMA-Toolkit page. Hopefully you guys can start using it and have pretty good results. Once again, we have a ton of information here. We also have some video. I'm wondering what this is. So this is essentially it's just me making small stories and trying to use the toolkit to do them. I recorded them myself and wrote here like small why I'm making this, why I'm making that one. And so I think you guys will learn a lot using these ones, I think. And if you have any doubts, of course, you can reach me. I'm Manuel Guimarães. I'm a PhD student. I think I forgot to introduce myself, but yeah. So see you guys. Actually, I need to put a better image. Okay.